So we just spoke with Joe from Interact Marketing, and now I'm talking with one of his employees, the VP of Client Services, Anthony Church. Usually I don't do back-to-back the same company, but with COVID, they both came out together, and it was a great opportunity to get two really amazing, smart people in the SEO industry to talk SEO with me. With Anthony, I'm going to be talking about a bunch of cool topics, including conversion tracking, the importance of well-rounded SEO strategy, and much, much more. So I'm looking forward to talking to Anthony Church about his SEO knowledge and sharing it all with you. Anthony, thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Anytime. So if you could tell people in this camera over here who you are.
I'm Anthony Church. I'm with Interact Marketing. I'm the VP of Client Services there. I've been doing digital marketing now since the 90s, basically. Starting with just learning about it for my own projects, developing e-commerce stores back then, and then getting into everything as it's evolved over time, from just basic HTML websites to now all of the complexities that go into digital marketing between search, social, and everything else in between.
And we both went to Baruch College at some point.
Yes.
Like.
Yeah,
Cool.
I was part of their entrepreneurship program.
Cool. How was that?
For a year.
How was that? You enjoyed it?
I liked it. I loved it. I had great professors there. Really some good, memorable classes, and I met great people.
That's awesome. I just went there. It was when I was in Baruch, it was just like, go to class, run to client, go to class, run to client. So I never really formed any relationships with anybody.
Yeah.
But I do get their letters in the mail, their phone calls asking me to contribute as an alumni. But I don't feel that connection. I don't know if you can feel a connection with them.
Well, I was kind of the same. I just kind of commuted in, did my thing, went to class, and then commuted out.
Yeah, it was a commuter college, really, for the most part. It wasn't like on campus. They actually called that campus the vertical campus, I believe.
Yeah.
Right?
The vertical, yeah.
I was there. My last year at Baruch was when they opened up that new campus building.
Yeah, I think it was a few years old by the time I got there.
Yeah, so yeah, it looks like
a nice
that.
building.
All right, so your career, you've been doing SEO for a while now, since how long, I guess? How many years do you think?
SEO?
Yeah.
I really, since search engines started becoming a household thing where people started using it to try to find things.
Cool. And you have a long career. I don't know if you want me to name any specific companies, but what are some of the memorable companies that you worked for that you want to mention?
That we worked for a large variety of companies, from some national brands. We've supported a lot of SEO and TV products, right down to local companies, landscapers, and so on. So a real variety of experience. Didn't really focus too much on one specific industry or one specific client type, so I got a real well-rounded experience.
And you've been at Interact Marketing for, 12 years now or so?
No, I've been there for 7. I just had my 7th year anniversary with Interact Marketing. And then prior to that, I ran a digital agency, Blue Buckle Marketing. And when you combine the two, that's been about 12 or 13 years, I think, between those two.
Cool. Excellent. All right. So I know there's 2 topics you wanted to talk about. One was about conversion tracking. So what's your thoughts about conversion tracking?
Yeah. So that's an important topic that doesn't really get enough discussion. Most people, when they're talking about search optimization or digital marketing, they're mostly focused on things like running ad campaigns or just organic search, things like content link building and things like that. But when we run and develop these campaigns for our clients, one of the first things that we do that's important to establish up front is great, robust tracking, conversion tracking. And when we inherit campaigns from a lot of other agencies or a client that's maybe tried to set things up themselves, that's usually the area of the campaign that is the most lacking. It has either no or really weak tracking set up. So maybe they've set up a goal in Google Analytics or something like that, and a lot of times that's the extent of it. But they're not doing like multi-channel attribution, or they're not tracking phone calls, and so they're missing that whole segment of conversions. And it's difficult to really tell how well a campaign is doing if you're not tracking the campaign and what's converting in the campaign. So by setting up and making sure that you're using the full capabilities that are appropriate for the types of campaigns you're running inside Google Analytics, and using some third-party softwares like CallRail for call tracking, and getting tracking and conversion tracking set up properly through there. That's really important, and that's what a lot of campaigns I notice that we start working on are missing.
It makes sense. Yeah, I see a lot of SEOs and SEMs in the community talking about their success in terms of how well they are at ranking stuff and, doing certain things technical SEO and content and so forth. But a lot of them, I believe, are just looking at rankings and not necessarily looking at those conversions. So what's funny is when Google does updates and so forth, you often see that when people get hit, they say their rankings have declined, their traffic has declined, but yet their conversions have not.
Right. Exactly.
Which is also a very good measurement to look at. Obviously, you want to keep your clients happy. Yep. And if you go back to them and say, your rankings declined, we saved you this much on hosting costs and bandwidth costs, but your conversions have stayed the same or gone up because you're getting more direct traffic, more convertible traffic.
Or more relevant traffic. Because a lot of times those core algorithm updates that they do, the entire purpose of them is to make the search results more relevant to the searcher. And so we've seen clients lose significant traffic when a core algorithm update rolls out, but then when we drill in a little bit further, we see that a lot of times not only have they not lost any conversions, but in some cases their conversions have even gone up. And there's no way to tell that unless you have conversions set up properly.
So are there any beginner tips in terms of let's say somebody who can't afford to hire you guys and they just want to set up some basic tracking? What are the things they should be looking at?
Yeah, I think the most basic way to do it is to have your contact. Well, first is identifying what is a conversion.
Right.
Once you've identified what is a conversion, for most websites, a conversion will be a contact form submission, a request for a quote, form submission, or a phone call. In those cases, for somebody that's just getting started or maybe doing it on their own, drill into the goals section of Google Analytics and work on setting conversions up in there. And the easiest way to do that, really, I find, is setting up a redirect page for your forms to go to once they're submitted. And once you have that page that confirms that the form's been submitted, a thank you page, you can then take the URL of that thank you page and use it to set up your goals. So once that URL fires, Google will then trigger that as a conversion, and you can track that.
And then setting up some type of value, I guess, is important. So you can actually tell your clients, hey, this is how much money we brought you technically.
Yeah, that's kind of the whole other side of conversion tracking. And that one is one that you really have to work out and understand your business in order to do. Or in our case, we have to work with our clients to help them kind of derive what is the value of a lead. And then you also have to look at post-conversion conversions because the conversion on the website is just the lead. And until you convert them into a client, you don't really have a conversion rate of the number of leads you're getting. So let's just say, for example, you spend $100 and it gets you 10 leads, because we use easy numbers, but only 10% of your leads that come through actually convert into a client. You have to know these numbers and you have to know the total lifetime value of a lead in order to really start to be able to determine what is an acceptable cost per lead, and also to be able to start putting an actual value number on the conversions. Because if 90% of the form submissions, for example, that come through don't ever convert into a new client, that changes what the value of those leads are.
Awesome. That's all great information. So let's move on to the second topic.
Sure.
A well-rounded SEO view, like making sure your campaigns and your whole strategy works together.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little about that, please?
Sure. So anybody that has done any research on or studying of search engine optimization, or even run their own search engine optimization campaigns, most of the time what I find in those discussions and in analyzing the campaigns that people are running is they're primarily focusing on one or two or sometimes three or a small handful of strategies that they're using to improve the organic search rankings. What I don't see a lot of is, I heard a quote one time, and I don't remember, I can't attribute the original source of the quote, but it was essentially, I can't tell you one way to make a lot of money, but I can tell you a bunch of ways to make a little bit of money. Kind of the same deal with search optimization, where there's really not one specific thing that you can do that's going to make a massive difference. It really is the stacking on top of each other many different little things that you can do. So most people are focused on content, which everybody knows is extremely important. And the other thing that you hear people talking a lot about are link building.
Right.
Those are the two areas that most people know and understand search engine optimization to be about. But when you're formulating your search engine optimization strategy and plan, it's important to think bigger and to have a plan in place for how are you going to implement all the other little elements of SEO that make up the bigger picture and work synergistically. Things like technical SEO, how fast does the site run, security and so forth. But then even little things like what's your internal link structure look like, things like that. What are your, how are people finding information on the site, and how does the search engine see the website when they're crawling it and associate pages with one another? So making sure that you have a plan for addressing all of the things, even the things that aren't as fun. Content, link building, those are fun topics to talk about. But some of the things that are a little bit more technical, or maybe not as technical, but not as fun, like schema tags, for example, those are important topics to consider. And a lot of people that are engaging in SEO campaigns for themselves, they kind of just ignore those ones. They're not as fun to think about or to do.
And what's interesting is like each site and where each site is when you get it, I guess, to work on it, when you have a new client coming in, content might be important for client A, link building might be important for client B, and honestly, simple title tags might be important for client C, and any of those could make a huge difference. Sometimes strategy X might have an 80% chance of improving things. So each client's its own, and obviously if you fully understand the whole spectrum of everything, you guys can know where to put your budget towards, so you can actually go ahead and build a great plan for your customers.
Yeah, the best strategy starts with an understanding of where you're starting from.
Right.
And then you can adjust it from there. But in doing that, keeping in mind and having an understanding of all the various elements and aspects of SEO, which are almost endless, having an understanding of those, you can start figuring out where you need to focus first, and then putting a plan into place for all the other elements that go into a good SEO strategy.
I mean, not to put you on the spot, is there any like one client situation that you think, wow, this was like a big, small little thing, but a huge win? Obviously, it doesn't apply to everybody, but...
I guess what would fall into that category is after what became termed the Medic Update came out, for some clients that had medical-related websites or had medical information, or they'd been blogging for a while and there's lots of information on the blog related to medical or health-related topics, making small changes to the way that information was cited and sourced, making sure that there were bios on the website for the authors that were credible, that listed their credentials and so forth. Just those small tweaks. The information and the content was already there, but making small tweaks to the way that Google understood the content and who it was attributed to was important in that case. So that's
interesting. Cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So if people want to follow you, learn more about you and stuff like that, how could they do so?
Sure. You can get me on LinkedIn. It's linkedin.com/in/church, my last name. You can get me on Twitter. It's webmarketmagnet, @webmarketmagnet, or you can visit interactmarketing.com. You can contact us through that way.
Awesome. Thank you very much for doing this.
Thank you.